It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to see so many people here in the session. I'm Fraser Battye. I'm from the Strategy Unit. I'm the head of policy, but I'll introduce myself more fully in just 2 seconds. Rachel, I've managed to share my slides. Have I? There's a little Strategy Unit logo.
All good.
Excellent.
All good.
Okay, so I'll say some more about myself in just 2 seconds. For anyone on the call that doesn't know the Strategy Unit, we're an NHS team. We specialise in applied analytical work, and by analysis we mean all sorts of things. We mean evaluation, we mean evidence review, we mean critical thinking, we mean data science, and we mean analysis as as everyone I think would understand it. The piece of work we're going to tell you about today was funded by our partners at the Health Foundation, Therese Lloyd there, senior analyst, and who actually also got really involved in the content of the work and helped me to shape up some of the things I'm going to present to you. And I'm joined today, I'm really delighted to say I'm joined today by Danielle from the King's Fund. So Danielle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Fraser. Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Jefferies. I'm a senior analyst at the King's Fund. We're a health and care charity / think tank working to produce research, both qualitative and quantitative research, to influence and improve the health and care in England. So quite a broad role. I have a specialist role in sort of quant analysis. So it's great to be joined by Fraser here to talk about this topic.
Excellent, thank you. Listen, we've got oodles to get through today. I've designed it, so if we run out of time, this is on me. So you're going to feel a bit of a clip to the rhythm of the session today. So I'm going to spend a few minutes just saying something about the origin of the work, and I'm going to do it beginning with a little portrait of myself, I'm afraid to. So I'm going to bare my soul in front of all of you. The sort of two sides of me, as it were. I mean, I for the sake of my own sanity and psyche, I kind of have to see myself as fundamentally, I would like to think I'm a good, kind soul. I'm not as good looking as the guy on the thing. I don't look as fine in a top hat. I'm probably not as charming as he is. But in general, I would like to regard myself as mild-mannered, as kind, as pretty straightforward. But there is, it turns out, a dark side to my psyche, and this reliably comes out, and I wish I knew why, and I kind of don't. But when I see sort of really bad quality analytical work, there's something that just gets going in me. I kind of just can't hold back. And so the origin story for this work is seeing 1 or 2 or 3 reports that were doing the rounds in policy circles in particular, that I just thought was sort of low grade, and in fact I thought was sort of dangerously bad in some respects. They were supporting some assumptions and some claims that I just didn't feel would stack up. If anyone's interested in an example, footnote 66 in the 10-year plan is the place I would point you to. If I would just follow it, I would look at it and I would check out the source, but there it is in national planning. Anyway, so there I am getting all cross about things. You then get a choice, don't you? Do you then spend, this short, precious time you have on the planet trying to correct everything that you regard as wrong, every way you see it, and probably turn yourself into a very frustrated soul in doing so? Or, and you can see this is where we tried to head with this piece of work, do you attempt to get on the front foot a little bit and start saying, oh, hang on, rather than retrospectively being snarky or pointing the finger at people, could we do something to say up front what better quality would look like? And more particularly, could we do something that would allow non-analysts to at least begin to see whether analytical work that they were getting was likely to be good or likely to be bad? So the pieces of work I saw that I thought were bad, I actually thought you could spot what was wrong with them without any analytical training at all. So that was kind of the origin of this work. That was the starting thought. So to do the work, I interviewed 11 people, and you'll recognise number 3 on the list. Being present with us, you'll probably recognise many of the names on the list. I mean, just an absolutely stellar cast of people who know their way around analysis, and also who know their way around the communication of analysis, who do a lot of work with decision makers, and who are used to traversing that link between analysis and decision. And I really only asked these people 2 questions in the interviews. I said to them, I kind of got them to do it as a thought experiment. So imagine that you've just been sent some analytical work, or you just found it from somewhere. Something analytical comes into your orbit. Question 1, could you tell me what you're doing when you're looking at this thing that you've just got? What are you looking for in order to get like quick indicators of quality? What are the sort of on the surface signs that you're looking for? What rules of thumb do you have? And I got them to tell me what they were. And then I paused and then I said, of all of the rules of thumb that you have given me, do you think any of those could be given to someone who does not have a technical analytical background? And later on in the session, I'll present the results to you. But that was the aim and that was the origin of the work. So I'm now going to hand over to Danielle. Danielle, do you want me to leave that up for people?
Yeah, if we leave that up for a second. So we're now going to do a bit of a Slido interaction bit because we have so many analysts on the call. It'd be great to get your thoughts on what you look for when you're looking at a new piece of work and you're thinking about quality. What are the things you're looking for? So you can join the Slido and we've got a word cloud you can put your thoughts into. Be great to get your thoughts and then I can share the results. If we swap around, Fraser, I can share what we're getting. Look. I'm thinking.
Just whilst people are typing and things are coming up, it was fascinating. The responses to the question in the interview was fascinating to hear what people were after.
Nice, yeah. Oh, lots of good stuff. Data source, yeah, definitely a key one of actually digging in and see where this data has come from. Sources, matches, context, outcomes, methodology. Yeah, these are all things that are ringing, ringing familiar to me. Yeah. Anything on the presentation or the authors that comes to mind for people? Reference sources, labels, transparency, that's a big one. Data quality, data source. I think these are all very familiar words to me. I think these are all the same sort of things that popped into my head when we went through those interviews, Fraser. Presentation, understandable, that's a key one, that it's not confusing. Data quality, justifiable, references. Uncertainty, that's an interesting one. Being able to actually know when there's some uncertainty in the analysis that you see. Motivation, that's a good one. I think that might come up later, Fraser, of actually why has this bit of analysis been done?
The one that's tickling me is big words. Oh, it's just gone, but someone said big words.
Yeah. Yeah, come back to that understandability. If you put big words in that no one understands to try and hide what you've done. Trends and outliers, no pie charts. Strong feelings about pie charts. Story, interesting. Pie charts. Methodology. So I think the clear ones are coming out, Fraser. Oh, caveats. Yeah, definitely. So being able to see what people haven't been able to do and have they been honest about what they can't do in their analysis. Yeah, similar to limitations, yeah. Right, properly labeled charts. Bias. Interesting. It's quite nice being able to have this many people have your put their thoughts in, Fraser. I think having this many analysts put their thoughts down is really interesting. Detailed methodology. Still people thinking.
Hard to make a snap judgment. On average, I would say, and this is perhaps because of the sample of people we have on the call, not as superficial as some of the answers that some of the responses I was getting, not from you, Danielle, you of course were, but many of the responses I was getting, the first line responses from people were much more on the surface. These are responses that I think, and of course we will see, the responses are full of this kind of thing, but much of what I got was much more on the surface than this.
Interesting. Anyone else Final thoughts. Typos, yeah, interesting. Data quality. Interesting. We've got a good amount of responses, Fraser. Do those ring true for what you found in your interviews? If I'll hand
Absolutely
back
they
to
do.
you.
I've just thought of a cheaper way of doing research whilst we've been doing this. Shall I share where I got to with what people said? So let me you see where I got to. So Danielle, can you see if I managed to share this properly?
Yes, yeah, you're back.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll just share first of all the sort of findings that came through in the interviews, and then Danielle will run as another Slido, and then I'll display the sort of rules that I got to at the end. So the sort of findings, the things that I heard, I clustered them up into four sort of broad topics. The first was source. Now, there were a few responses in the Slido that we just did that were looking at this, but this was the first one, and I'll talk some more about it, is where has this work come from? Who has produced it? Where's it from? The second, which the responses were full of, is the analytical approach clear? Is it been made explicit? The third, which was definitely touched on in some of the responses, has the analysis been laid out with care and with precision? And the final one in relation to findings, are they plausible? Are they useful? Are they surprising? So I'm just going to unpack each one of those themes. I'll do it really quite quickly. The first on source, the checks that people were telling me that they were performing. And again, remember, these are extremely experienced analysts. They were saying that the sort of headline things they're looking for is who has produced this work. And this was at the most surface level. This is like, whose badge is on this work? Do as an institution, do they seem to be credible? As individuals, do they seem to be credible? And also fundamentally, what do their incentives seem to be? How could we imagine the incentives of the people producing this stuff? The second one was more subtle. Has this come from a peer-reviewed journal? So I think when people were saying this was a test that they would use, they were not saying, if yes, then I trust it, and if no, then I don't. Because everyone was then saying, look, there are journals and there are journals. And there was an example that someone gave to me where the journal titles to the untrained eye were basically the same. And they were saying, if I got a paper in one, that's it, I've made my career. The other journal is contacting me every 2 minutes trying to get me to pay 200 quid to give them a paper, sort of thing. But nonetheless, people are saying that is something like a marker of quality. And then the final one, although the people raising this one, and in particular one interviewer is saying this is too rare, if you're a decision maker, has the work been assured by someone that you know who knows their onions? So someone that you know is technically good, had a look at this, sent it across to you and said, look, this is good stuff, have a look. So they were the first sources of sort of checks on quality, were all about where the work has come from. The second sets were much more about in line with the responses that we just got, which is all about the analytical approach. And here people are saying things like, has the method been set out? The expression red flag turned up so many times in the interviews. If I don't see a method description, red flag, I'm probably distrusting what I'm now looking at. And someone else, if you can't tell me about data quality, I'm not interested in the results you're about to show. So have we done that? And in particular, then people saying, well, look, if I know that source, I know it can substantiate the claims that we're going on to look at. So I will trust it more or less according to sources. People saying, have you given me some definition of the concepts before we get going? And in particular, then, does the data support the concepts we're looking at? Assumptions, again, one of the interviewees, huge thing. They were saying, analysis is almost certainly going to have some assumption in, particularly if we're then going to think about the future. If I can't see that you've made your assumptions clear and explicit, red flag, I'm starting to doubt the quality. Another one, maybe more subtle, do the assumptions seem to be plausible given what we know about the way that the real world works? So are we using assumptions that are based on things that have happened previously or have happened elsewhere in analogous circumstances? Or are we picking assumptions from the sky? And the classic one is, if only everyone performed as well as the top 10%, then the world would be better. Yes, but not perhaps a plausible assumption. And then the final one, which I noticed, delighted to see, was shared many times in the responses to Danielle's Slido. Have we shared the underlying analysis? Could it be checked? Could it be replicated? Can we get hold of it and see it? So there's a set of tests about transparency. When it came to expression, interviews were really good on this because, of course, these are people who try to express analysis all the time. The thing about typos was really interesting, but people saying, has care been taken in the overall presentation? Someone gave me the image. They said, oh, sort of like way back when, if the book came to you in hardback, you knew it was probably serious, but they'd got that kind of image. Are people using statistical terms with care? Are they looking at their time periods appropriately? Are the data current enough? The final thing, and it came through several times, didn't it, in the Slido, have we pointed to our uncertainty remains? Is there some residual uncertainty? Are we talking about it? Are we acknowledging limitations? And it'll be really interesting when I come to the rules of thumb. It is, in some respects, these are technical terms, but they can cash out in quite plain ways, and we'll perhaps see that later on. And then the final one, we're thinking here about the sort of about the plausibility and the usability of the results. And so these expert analysts were saying the things that they would be looking for here are the results surprising? And the test that they were thinking here is if they're seeing results that run against what is generally known in the field, if they're seeing really big effect sizes off evaluation, they're starting to doubt the quality of the work. I used to work with a chief economist in one of the central government departments, and his rule of thumb for evaluation is he didn't believe in effect size over 10%, and it kind of didn't matter what it was. He said he'd just seen so many of them that were bigger than that, and they always dissolved when he looked at it properly. So he just said, if I'm seeing surprising big effects, I just don't believe them as a sort of matter of course, really. In the presentation of findings, do they suggest awareness of the context in which they're applying? So does the analyst seem to know the territory, the service perhaps that they're looking at? A question of humility and limitation. Are findings being expressed with a sense of humbleness? The converse of that was, do I appear to be reading a polemic? Am I reading something where someone's attempting to convince me of something? Or do they genuinely seem to be trying to enlighten me? Are they trying to give me insights? And then the final one, may be harder. There was quite a lot of intangible stuff actually in the interviews. Some people were almost saying, someone said to me they thought they could smell bad code. And I think they meant that in an almost literal way. They were just saying, there's something that comes with experience that is a little bit like intuition, or it might actually just be straight intuition. So am I reading this thing and does it intuitively feel plausible? Now, it's very hard to pin that down, isn't it? But this is what people who are experts in the field were suggesting to me. So they were the sort of four main themes that people were offering to me. So I'm going to hand back to you now, Danielle. You're going to ask people a sort of question that follows from that.
Yeah, so really helpful, Fraser. I think those four categories really help me think through what I'm actually doing when I look at a bit of data analysis. What am I actually looking for when I get those hunches and feelings? So the question we'd like to ask you again, same Slido, is you've had all these hunches and feelings, you've looked at a bit of analysis, you've done all the tests in your head. What could you give to your non-analytical colleagues you think they could do? That isn't something that you get as an analyst you feel like as an analyst. What is something you can tangibly say, my colleagues could also look for this and identify good quality data? So I should have started another poll here. So I've put in some of the suggestions you all gave of things that you'd want to include. Feel free to vote for which ones you think you're most likely to give to non-analytical colleagues. And I'll share it on my screen again. Window. Okay. Oh, interesting. Understandable. Interesting. Oh, the real shift of different thoughts. So understandable presentation are the top ones. I guess that comes to those first things you see that maybe you might see a headline or a chart that doesn't quite make sense, and you get sort of a feeling that maybe I should look into this deeper. Yeah, and I guess understandable is a key one too. If you can't communicate what you've written, maybe that suggests that there's something more going on behind the analysis. Variable sources. Interesting. Methodology, presentation. Slightly less votes for data quality. Maybe that's more of an analytical thing where you know the data, you've spent all day looking at it and diving into it, and maybe that's one that you're maybe, yeah, that have that analytical background to see, but understandable feels like a key one. Interesting. I guess Fraser, I think the one that was most interesting in your list, I think that rang true to me, is the one about it being surprising. I think colleagues here at the King's Fund often say if you see something and it looks surprising, it's probably wrong. So we should probably check the data and double check what's happening, because often you can do a bit of analysis and not find any interesting trends. So that's often one you can see, and maybe that links into understandable. If it's one that seems plausible, feels like it could be possible, you're more likely to think this is probably a legitimate bit of work.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I remember, I mean, the very senior analyst at the strategy unit telling me once, if they saw a very big effect size, their starting assumption was that it was a coding change in the data. Yeah, that was just their start. So they were then looking to eliminate that ahead of getting to anything like a genuine effect size.
Yeah, or something's missing in the data, the source has changed, that kind of thing, rather than anything believable.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. So it feels like it's the headline things that you see in an analytical piece of work that you could probably get a gist of without any analytical background.
Yeah. I mean, it was really interesting to me. I did genuinely begin this work just actually sort of with the intuition that it would be possible for people who really know analysis to give those of us who really don't a set of like things to look, a set of ways of priming you or things to look for. But I wasn't sure. I mean, I began the interviews and I just thought, well, let's just see. I mean, maybe I'd have interviewed you and you'd have said to me, no, look, this is such a technical field that can't possibly be handed on to the ignorant like you. You know, thanks for your time, but please go away. But it was really interesting to me that, you know, for example, you gave me a set of tests, many of which I couldn't comprehend. You know, it was beyond my ken what you were describing. But then at the end, you were able to give me things that I could understand. So it seemed to me that there were actually things that could be handed over, and it's, you know, that's kind of come through in this polling as well. I mean, you were on the receiving end of my daft question. I don't know how you found it. Did you? Was your original thought, oh, come on, go away. This is technical stuff. You've got to train.
No, I think it was interesting because it made me think through the different steps I went through. How you're probably the first red flag is those sort of more visible things about, is this a wildly sensational headline? Is this a graphic that doesn't make any sense? Those are kind of the high level things that grab out to you. It's only then that you go into looking at the methods, looking at the sources, looking at what kind of tests they've used, what sources they've come from, who's writing this, that kind of thing. So it was helpful to be able to go through that process of, I don't think this is a good bit of work. Why is that? What is the system that's happening behind that? That's leading me to that conclusion. And it's often there's not one thing. It's like you could probably forgive one thing that wasn't quite right. It's the combination of lots of things and digging in deeper that sort of raises alarm bells.
That's excellent. I mean, I was a little bit worried that some people might be insulted when I approached them with this. And I mean, luckily, I know one or two of the interviewees well enough that I was able to sort of ask them, oh, come on, but for literally no seconds here am I trying to undermine your technical expertise or imagining that I can extract it from you in an interview. But one of the first people that responded to me, I was saying something like, oh, you know, how do you judge the quality of analysis? And their opening response to me was, I've got 30 years of experience. Yeah. So I thought that was quite interesting. Anyway, shall I present the results back?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, that was a roundabout way of me saying, look, one of the really important things I didn't say about this project is that and you'll see in 2 seconds time, there was literally no suggestion that anything like technical expertise could be done away with. And in fact, one of the subtexts of the project was to try to point decision makers absolutely squarely at local analytical expertise. So I'll say a bit more about that in 2 seconds. So again, Danielle, I've managed to share my slides properly. Have I?
Yeah, I can see those.
Thank you. Okay, I'll sort of tell you where I got to with it now. And I'm going to sort of offer you the rules of thumb that I think I've managed to get to with the project. I'm ahead of saying it, I don't think I've nailed this by a long chalk. There's something about it that just doesn't, it kind of works, but it doesn't quite work. So I guess what I'm going to do now is run through these things with you. But here we have a virtual room full of people who know their onions. I'm actually really interested in your thoughts, your reactions, and ways in which you think this could be improved, and ways in which you think it could be used as well, ways in which you think this stuff could be taken to decision makers and leaders who might be the consumers of analysis. So please hear what I'm going to say in that line. Here they are. I'm going to run through them in a bit more detail, but I thought it'd be useful, first of all, just to show you, with some fiddling, I managed to get it on a page. And one of the interviewees said, we should try to get a product out of this that we could print out, laminate, and put on a fridge. Now, I'm not recommending this as fridge decoration, but at least I think it was possible to get to a set of relatively plain rules that could be relatively briefly expressed. So there we are, and I'll now go through them in a little bit more detail. I wanted it to be pitched at the decision maker, and I wanted them to be imagining that they were getting analytical work. And then I've tried to give it them as a set of questions. And the first question I've tried to give them to think about is about their priors. So what are their starting beliefs when they're approaching a piece of analysis? They're about to see analysis on a topic. How do they feel about that topic ahead of seeing the analysis? And in particular, are they about to read something wanting certain things to be true? And again, I'm just going to say footnote 66. I think you should be careful if you're reading things to have your prior beliefs confirmed. And I think it's useful, therefore, to try to encourage a bit of healthy skepticism in decision makers. So the first thing they should ask themselves, what are your priors? What are your starting beliefs? The second question is just runs straight from what I was hearing from the interviewees. Where has this work come from? So here you are, the decision maker. You're getting this piece of analytical work. First of all, has it come to you via a trusted analytical colleague? Has your chief analyst given you this stuff and they've said, look, you have to read this, it's good? When you get it, when you're looking at it, has the purpose been very clearly stated? Do you know who has funded the work? So, who is supporting this? And can you imagine at least what their incentives might be doing in doing it? And the people who've done the work, do they seem credible? I mean, this is tricky on one level if you're not an analyst or you don't particularly know the territory, but something like the King's Fund logo on it, I'm going to say is going to pass as a badge of credibility in many cases. Is this organization credible? Have they got a track record in doing what they're doing? And again, can we think about their incentives? So these are not technical tests. These are tests of imagining who has done it and thinking about their incentives. So they're the first two. What are my starting beliefs and where has this work come from? The next rules that we hit upon, again, this is getting a little bit closer to technical knowledge, but I still don't think is quite technical knowledge. Is the analysis transparent? So here's a test that I think is a technical test in many ways, but actually you can take a signal from it if you're a non-analyst. Has the code or the analysis been shared? If I wanted to, as a decision maker, to get this checked out by an analyst, could I just go, oh, they appear to have shared it all. Please, could you check it out? Getting more technical. Have the methods and data sources been described? Okay, I might not know the detail of method if I'm a decision maker, but I can at least see, is there a statement of method? And is there any talk of innovative going on in this method? That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad method, but it might at least prime your senses. Can you trace sources within it, and do the sources seem to relate to the context? So in one of the things that I've mentioned a couple of times now, and I'm now going to stop mentioning, you can see all sorts of like footnotes and references that don't quite relate to the NHS so well. And can you trace sources through into the bibliography, for example? This thing about assumptions, are they clear? Are they plausible? Do they connect with real world experience? There's a sort of classic trick in a lot of analysis that's done. Here are our hospitals lined up on some measure. oh, if only everyone was as good as the top 20%, then the following lives would be saved, and so was the money. But does that assumption seem to be grounded in the real world? Does it seem a sort of plausible assumption given what we actually know? And then finally, we'll talk a little bit more about this in 2 seconds. Are the limitations clear, and are we recognizing uncertainty around it? Are we claiming precision where precision can't be had? For example, are we giving single point estimates where actually really, given the subject, we should be talking about some broader ranges? So that's the second rule I thought you could probably get out of these interviews. And then again, I think we're now getting much more squarely back onto the decision makers territory with the fourth test, which is, do these rules make sense? Again, it's back to this thing. Are the results surprising to you? And in particular, one of the interviews was saying, and this has just come straight through, be very skeptical about causal claims. Intervention X has caused outcomes Y and Z. We all know methodologically these things are hard to get to stack up. If it's surprising and methodologically tricky, you should probably begin really quite skeptical. Interviewers were really keen on this. For the decision maker not to suspend their knowledge of the context. They may well know this service area or this business area way better than the analyst does. So do the findings fit with what you already know? And then finally, this question of almost of tone. When you're reading something and you sort of feel like someone's got you by the back of the neck and they're marching you somewhere. You honestly feel like I'm not having this stuff laid out for me carefully. I'm not getting the caveat. I'm not getting the subtlety. Someone is trying to take me somewhere, whether I want to go there or not. So do you feel as though the analysis is informing you or persuading you? I felt like we could give that to our decision maker. So they're the rules. They're short and they're sharp in some ways. Here, though, is a sort of hidden little punchline that was that I really wanted to operate within this project, which is, as the decision maker, having had a look at all of that, but if you're getting to especially analysis informing a decision, you very well want to just turn around to find some analytical expertise, ideally local analysts that you would work with, and engage them much, much more. So there was a subtext in the project here, which was about trying to get analysts and decision makers, again, closer together. It's kind of an ongoing mission of ours in many different ways. So there they are. That's the sort of set of rules. I hope people think they're plain. I hope people think that decision makers they work with genuinely could perform these sorts of tests and genuinely could gain something from it. But I am really interested in people's reactions, and I'm really interested in ways in which people think these rules could be used and could be improved. I think there's, as I say, I think there's something in them, but I don't think they quite hit the mark. I'm not brilliantly sure why. Anyway, we did them. We launched them again with Therese at the Health Foundation on a little blog on the Health Foundation website. Again, we're trying to engage non-analysts in the way that we presented that. The final report and everything, all of the results of the interviews and the rules themselves are on the Stress Unit website. If you just look for rules of thumb on our website, you'll find it. And then sort of finally, I guess one thing I feel like this has been a sort of a step towards taking technical material from analyst world into decision maker world. I feel like it's a small step. I don't think this is going to radically improve the way that evidence and analysis is used, but I think there's some useful material in this, and I'm pleased. I think that's still progress, even if it is small. I am, though, very, very interested in people's reflections on where we might take this and how we could use it, and how, as a sort of group of people who are interested in analysis and wanting analysis to be better used, how we could develop this and where we might take it. So I think we've got a bit of time. We've perhaps got 10 minutes or so just to open that out. So I don't know, Rachel, what the best way of doing this is. If I sort of stop and encourage people to put hands up and make comments or questions, or Danielle, maybe you have thoughts as to where this might go next. So shall I just open it out for 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks very much both. So well, we have options. We've always got options. So one option that isn't available to a lot of people because I know this for a fact is the chat, and I think that might mean they can't put their hands up either. I think you can probably unmute yourself and just and talk. So that's one option. We have some comments that we might want to start with on Menti. So if I just share my screen, so we've got a couple of observations, couple of comments, couple of questions.
I mean, I can see Siva and Jacqueline have got, and I'm worried about Jacqueline's. So let's go with Menti first.
Yeah, so I'll read them out because some of them relate to, I think, sort of comments as you were talking earlier on. So this one here, I have no Teams chat. I realize this, I recognize this. And I'll just do a couple of them. I think it's important to go to the people in the room as well. So just some observations here. So data sharing and governance is complicated. We know this. We all love all of that, and it makes our lives a lot easier. But can we make it simple and also show how do we handle information overload? Thank you. So I think it is a question. It's also a sort of an observation. I don't know whether this is something that we can talk about in this context. Let me have a think, or you have a think. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, there's one here. We get in consultants without using our resources to assess their quality. Yeah, I think that seems to be a generic problem. In one of the first drafts of the report, I think there was a really quite strong undertow of anti-consultant talk in many of the interviews. So I kind of turned it down in the end a little bit. But this question of incentives and credibility, I think that's perhaps the best way to address that.
And just one more sort of comment because I know when this was raised, and then we can go to Jack, who's got a hand up. So someone said they completely agree with you, Fraser, and I'm pretty sure I made a mental note, didn't write it down, so I could be completely wrong. I think this is when you were talking about the importance of that relationship between the analysts and the decision maker. So it's kind of paramount to all of this, and having that trust and also the trust in the analyst and the influence of the analyst or whoever's producing information over or on the people, the decision makers who are making those decisions. Let's go to the room. Should we go to Jack?
Let's do that. Come on, Jack. This has to be pleasant. Come on.
It's very pleasant. I put my hand up to respond to your question about where could we take this. What I'm interested in, where we could take this, and what sprung to my mind straight away was it's all about how does a decision maker recognise good quality analysis, and as one of those analysts that's probably just at that 30 years experience, I'm interested in like early career, like young analysts, new analysts, and I think a really good kind of development of this work would be a set of rules of thumb for a young new analyst when they're producing pieces of work, because like so often in the past I've had like people working for me, and you ask them to do something and they produce it, and kind of there's a little bit inside of you that goes, oh, because there's just and you have to like steel yourself to not appear frustrated that there's no labels on the axes, there's no clear title, there's no footnotes, and I think all these kind of rules of thumb for what makes a good piece of analyst, you could turn them into rules of thumb that young and even the older absent-minded of us analysts could use as a checking mechanism and as a planning mechanism for their own analysis. So like kind of when they're setting out with a piece of analysis, well, what do I need to think about? I need to make sure I've got this and all this is boxed off, that I've got some clear limitations, that I'm using a good data source, that I'm documenting that, and I think that would be a good development of the work.
Oh, Jack, that's excellent. Danielle, I don't know if you've got reflections following the session we did last week before?
Yeah, exactly. I think I had the exact same thought, that when I, after doing the interviews and then seeing the final report from Fraser, I think I thought this is great for decision makers, but also this is great for early career people. So I shared it with my intern, who's a health data scientist, and we did a presentation, myself and Fraser, to a big group of health data research scientists last week, because I think it's perfectly pitched at someone who may be new to the field, want to understand how they can produce analysis in order to make it believable and influential to decision makers. So I think it definitely works the other way around, and it's very easy to follow even if you don't have those technical skills as an early career analyst. So I definitely agree. I definitely think it would be a good thing to do for the other way around.
Cool. Rachel, do you mind dropping the screen? I'm feeling a bit overstimulated. There's too much input for me. Although I can see that Siva has got a hand up. Siva.
Hi there. I don't know whether you can see me all right. I think
I can hear you. You're
Yes,
audible. Oh, I can see you.
I worked as an analyst and a manager in several facets of NHS, public health, provider side, ICB side. I've got a fairly good idea about what's happening. And a lot of the times I get confused with a lot of the aspects. Given this forum, because you're the work that you guys have done, I guess you pretty much speaking to all the directors and all those other senior management people, your background is coming more from a research perspective, but what we needed for as an analyst is more on an operational and a business and a strategy perspective, which I think is basically missing. There's one side looking at what basic data analysis, like what Jackie or someone before mentioned about looking at the sources, understanding. The first fundamental question is about what is your basic question you're trying to answer, and then understanding what dimensions that you needed for what data you need, and understanding which source to use. Is it a validated source? And understanding the time period of it. Okay, what period is the viable period for it to use? And that fundamental thing, I think I'm not seeing anywhere here, actually understanding. So what is your time period and what source you're using, what validation you're doing, and how you present back to your stakeholders. How do you talk to technical stakeholders? How do you talk to non-technical stakeholders? What do they see for it? And some of the points that the mentee analysis we did, I saw that about presentation and understandable. And if you talk to like directors or chief executives, all they look for is big things. What's changing first? But not to achieve these big things, you need to have the small things right first, which is done at an analytical level, at a junior, like a data quality officer level, understanding them, training them up. I think that was missing bit. So if you go to junior analyst or officer who's starting out, where do they start? What questions they need to ask? Where do they go? As a rule of thumb, that should be your first port of call. And I think if you interview, my suggestion is to like junior analysts who's starting out from graduate positions in a hospital, start on hospital and an ICB, you will get more insight actually from a junior analyst. What's happening? There are so many layers of things I've been seeing the last 20 years. The layers are getting complicated a lot. Another suggestion is that.
See, but you're turning into a speech here.
Sorry.
I'm just conscious that other people have got their hands up, and I don't feel I feel like I want to invite their thoughts in as well. Do you, if that's okay?
Yeah, but I'm happy to chat with you about it in a different forum, or if you want to email
That's
me.
excellent.
But there's so much we can do. That's what I try to get at.
That's excellent. Thank you. Mark, can I invite you in as well, please?
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to ask a question. Hi, I just wanted to ask a question about, you mentioned innovation, and you said that might be a warning that they're using that innovation to cover up a bad analysis. But as analysts and data scientists, we're often encouraged to be innovative in our analysis. So what tips or advice could you give to, say, if you do a piece of analysis that is innovative and a little bit non-standard, how can you communicate that in a way that that gives some confidence that what your analysis is good, but also innovative? Like, yeah,
Let me have
it's a bit of a challenge.
let me have a super quick go at it, because I can see another hand, and then Danielle, maybe you've got a thought. You noticed my tone went perhaps a little bit tentative when I made that point, and I think because it was a point direct to the decision maker, the suggestion there was, if you're seeing descriptions in the method which has got the word innovative all over it, you probably need to get your analyst to have a proper check of it. So just so something isn't being hidden that's about to fall out of a wizard's sleeve, make sure you've got a technical view on it. Danielle, I don't know if you've got a perspective.
Yeah, I would say I'd be less skeptical about something being innovative if I know it's from an organization that checks, like, quality assures their work internally. So I know that it's more than just one analyst trying out an innovative method. It's someone else that's also checked that method and has also looked at it and said that it's a good method to use. So I think either showing that you've got other people who have reviewed it, or being in an organization that you know peer reviews their work, I think is really helpful.
Thank you. Rachel, I don't know if I can feel Rachel's eyes burning into the side of my head because there's 4 minutes to go. Can I maybe get one more comment in, or do you want it?
No, that's fine.
Go on then. So I can see, whose hand can I see? Catherine.
Hi, everybody. So I work at NHS England in a strategy role, but I've got a social research background. It drives me slightly mad that the kind of quantitative analysis is seen as the magic bullet, and there isn't really that focus around qualitative data. And so I think it's really important that, in terms of the framing of this, it's kind of framed in terms of the need for triangulation, and I'd be interested in terms of what quality looks like from a qualitative perspective as well. And I think we need to recognise that we're starting from a really low baseline here in terms of people's understanding of how to use data. So it really is like 101. And I think there's huge potential to build that kind of understanding around how to interpret data for non-analysts, because there's very, very little in this space at the moment, and I think people are crying out for it.
That's beautifully said. There's nothing I could add to that would make it any better. Danielle, I don't know if you've got any thoughts.
Yeah, I can completely agree. On behalf of the rest of my policy team, we do lots of qual work. I think equally they are passionate about quality, qualitative analytical work as well. So I definitely think it'd be helpful to have something similar in that space.
Amen. Rachel, now I can feel your eyes boring into the side of my head.
You can.
So let me stop now. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks both. You'll have seen me flash the other comments and questions that people had, and they put on Menti. They won't be lost. I will pick those out, and I'll share them with Fraser and Danielle after, and I'm sure they will provide us with some responses to those. And as normal, I'll put them on the website, or I will send them out to you via email. These are the next few huddles which are coming up. There's a bit of a contrast. So the next one is a bit techie. So this is about simplification of statistical process control. It's actually I'm going to change that title because it makes them a lot. It's new, and it makes them it's innovative. Actually, it makes them a lot better. That's with Mohammed and the data analyst who is supporting him on that. That's Professor Mohammed. We got this is the one I've been talking about. We do have the strategy unit, new hospital program, demand and capacity model. That's with Chris Bealey and colleagues, and they're going to tell us all about that in 4 weeks' time. We've got Mark Farr, who's going to be I don't know what he's going to be talking about. I have to be honest. Whatever he wants, but he's booked in for late September, and we have his role duplicated on the row below. I wonder where that went. And then everybody loves FDP, so we thought we get an analyst perspective on that. And we have 1 or 2 others here, but also always opening up to everybody, whether you're in the Midlands Analyst Network or beyond. We really would like to hear about your work. So we'd like to know what you're doing as well. So there's a couple of other training opportunities and events coming up, and I just have to mention that Hacker is now out there for you to register for and to share your abstracts. There's a little bit of a focus on the NHS 10-year plan, but not sort of directly. It's it's there to really help us celebrate analysts and to show their value in the NHS plan, and wider than that, in the importance of their role in that, and just to really reassure everybody, in fact, yeah, exactly, reassure everybody that it is, can't be done without them, can't be done without you. So on that note, I will just finish by saying the recording of this will be available on the website, but I'll send it out as well via email. I'll send that link out via email. Also, the links to the blogs that Fraser's mentioned and the report of which goes with this today, that Fraser mentioned as well. And really, I think it's important for us to that you've had some great feedback so far on what to do next, but keep that coming so we can improve this and make it useful from both sides, from the analysts, wherever you are in your career, and the decision makers, wherever you are in your career. Let's get these rules of thumb articulated and adhered to. I don't really mean that. So thank you again, Danielle and Fraser. Thanks again for coming, and thank you everybody for coming today. And I'll see you in approximately 2 weeks minus 1 hour. Okay. Bye bye, everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.